this if we can. So yeah, so we last left off at, believe we left off at, well, I think it was edit. Yeah, edit. I think we left off at it, if I'm not mistaken. I wanted to point out something I mentioned in another video, which I remembered, but if you go to document, you go save as, you do want to save the tool, because the tool will retain the material and color information. If you just save the document, it's going to save a flat version. It'll just save it like this. You won't be able to rotate it or anything. So don't do that. Make sure you save the tool. All right. As far as the Zap link not working, I was reading online about it, but you have to run ZBrush as administrator if your Zap link isn't working to link up to your Photoshop. And you might even have to reinstall ZBrush if it gives an issue. So we're going to revisit that though, future chapter, because we kind of already went past that. But essentially what you're able to do, like when you use Zap link, you can paint on your model in Photoshop, and you can drop the changes into Photoshop, and then pick it up, and then pick up the changes. So if I was to lay a face, let's say I sculpt the face, right? And then I was going to, basically texture the face in Photoshop, it'll wrap on the model when it gets back to ZBrush. So that's pretty much how that works. Okay. So let's just move along here, and let's see where we're at. I think we did edit. No, I don't know. We didn't do edit, actually. Or not edit. We did edit. It's file that we didn't do. File. I'll dock this to the side so you can see what's going on. Sorry, I just want to... Let me close this out. Get it some more screen room. You can double click, by the way. Double click to open. Double click to close. So let's open the file. Okay. If it wants to go there, I'm not going to fight it or whatever. Anyway, so you can open a project here. You basically you can pretty much do similar things that you can do with the tool. There is a Lightbox properties to open the file. It's going to take you right to your project. This will be a .zpr file, which is the ZBrush project itself. And I think if you save the project, right, we can even do a test. If I save the project, like let's say we just save this as ZBrush project, then I open that project. Let's see what we're left with here. Okay, so saving the project will save everything. Save the way the canvas is, and pretty much everything that you have. So it's a little more advanced than just saving the sub tool. So honestly though, most time what we do is we just save the sub tool, save as. But if you want to retain the way this canvas is gray right now, because by default it's a gradient, things of that nature, even if you have certain lights set up a certain way, then you want to save it as a project. All right. The canvas is just like, if you want to save the way this canvas is, like right now it's gray, it doesn't have a gradient on there. You could save canvases, you can open them in different projects if you like the way a certain color scheme works. The tool mesh allows you to load different tools. So if I hit load tool, I could load, let's say Dino 4. Okay. So it's just basically just loading up. It's pretty much it's the same thing as if you were going here and going load tool, because by default you get this menu already, so it's kind of redundant. You know what I mean? So you don't really need to worry about it. Timeline, you can load and save timelines. We didn't learn timelines yet, but timelines you could basically kind of save like an animation, just of your model like moving and stuff like that in certain ways. And it's good like if you want to take like snapshots, I guess you can say. Let's say like you were working on the dragon, you have it in this position. I'll show you guys later, but you can set a keyframe for the timeline, and then if I go like this, I go into the timeline, and then I go boom, right back to where I was before. So it's good for that. All right. Spotlight. We didn't learn Spotlight yet. Spotlight is like another way of texturing. To be honest, I haven't used it in a while. But I actually can't load a Spotlight because I don't have any saved spotlights, if that even makes sense. But we will learn Spotlight. Definitely will teach you Spotlight. But basically what you would do, I don't even know if I could really do it here. You generally would pick a texture and then you could load it into Spotlight. Okay, but I don't believe I have that option right now. And we'll get to it though. All right, we'll get to it. So Spotlight is basically a way just to have your reference images basically in there. But usually I have a button like to load the Spotlight. But we'll figure it out later on. Now, texturing is like you can import or export textures, and you can see right here that texture file format is a PSD or different image formats basically, and the texture basically wraps around your character, so you can. And you could wrap, like I could wrap this as a texture around this dragon if I wanted to, as long as it's UV'd. But I'll have to teach you UVs and everything. But basically, UVs are a way like something is cut and laid out flat, and then a texture is projected on top of it. That's what this is kind of talking about. It's talking about texture map. I believe this is the texture map, if I'm not mistaken. If it's not a texture map, it's just a regular PSD format. It's probably just referring to the regular texture and not the actual 3D textures, which is kind of confusing because there's there's two different texturings that I know of, and that's the texture in ZBrush, which is this right here, and then there's texturing when you texture your object. So I mean, if I try to load something in here as a texture, you could see I could choose it. See that? I could actually choose that image which was like something else that I created, but I could literally choose that as a texture. So that's what that's referring to, basically. I'm not really going to worry about that. You can import and export alphas, which is, the alphas that are here. You can import alphas. So if you download alphas, let's say from the internet, you can go ahead and click import to import it in there or something like that. Or you can save in like a startup folder or something, and you can make a new folder. I usually make a new folder in here, and I would save it inside here. Like if you click, new folder, you would just say custom alpha, right? And then click enter. Make sure you're typing in there custom alpha, right? Hit enter, and it'll create a folder called custom alpha. You can see right here, like this is where the file location is, and if I click go to folder, it'll take me to that folder. But so basically, you could just put all your alphas in there. So for me, I would put all my alphas in, D drive, program files, pixel log to ZBrush, Z alphas, custom alpha, right? So it's a good way to keep things organized, pretty much. All right, I'll hit comma to close out the lightbox. All right, and that's pretty much it for the file. Let's move along. We got layer. Layer is equivalent to this right here, pretty much, right? So your subtools is your layers. Kind of think of Photoshop layers if you ever use Photoshop. And each layer can have one or more tools onto it. For example, if we dock layer it, we pretty much have kind of, like I said, the same settings that we have here. Which you really won't have to worry about this, to be honest. Like I said, by default, when ZBrush opens, it has this tool menu, and it has a subtool menu already in there. You could see I have a duplicate here, and I have a duplicate here, and you can duplicate the layers and everything like that. You could fill a layer. So this layer is referring to texture layers. So you could just see I just filled the background, and now I'm not even in like the right thing. I hit Control N to clear that out. All right. So that's pretty much what the layers are. There's a duplicate now because I made a duplicate here. So this layer is a little different than this layer. I apologize. Let's delete that because it's redundant. I'll hit Control N and draw this back out. So honestly, I don't mess with this. This is something completely different from this. To bake, you can bake like the shading of the layer and things like that. You know, displacement. This is kind of like more like some of it's like advanced and old stuff. I wouldn't even worry about it, to be honest. Just worry about the subtool layers. Light is something that we do use a lot, and it's kind of weird because in ZBrush there's two different light things, and they kind of pretty much do the same thing in a way, but you have more control with light caps, which is right here, than this. Now, certain textures or certain matte caps have the color or have the lighting information baked into it. So when I move my light around, you could see like there's no lighting change happening on this. But if you look down here at a different, like if you look at the previews, you could pretty much see like what usually would be able to have the lighting that would work for you. But you can see like none of these are working. And then if we go to, well, skin shader should be able to work. We have to, you know what it is? We filled this object with a material, so it's baked with that material. So us changing this here, it's not going to update it. Because we already filled the object with a different material. Well, if you fill an object with material, if you try to change your material, it's not going to show anything until you go to the M. Once you go to the M for material, you click fill object. Now all of a sudden, you could see that I can mess around and the lighting actually shows up on this now. So for now, I'm just going to use like a basic material. Basic material 2. Really doesn't matter. You could see that we can get kind of like an outline effect when we put this in the middle here. And for the lighting, this way is kind of wonky, to be honest with you. But you can add different lights by just clicking on this light button. See what ZBrush likes to do, you know, they have everything from, you know, even if they improve something, they don't take out the old stuff. So some stuff is still in there, even though like there's a better way, which is the light cap is pretty much like a better way of doing things. I'll show you this way though. But you know, basically I could change the color of the light here. You know, I can make it orange, I can make it red, I can do whatever I want. I can raise the intensity on it. You know, I can change the distance, which is, you know, how much of the area the light is affecting. I can up the ambience, which makes it really super bright. And you can see, I mean, pretty fast though. We can get some kind of cool results. You know, I wouldn't say it's the best way. And then when we render it out, it'll render out the lighting and it'll add shadow information. Okay, so that's kind of like a quick way. And usually, you know, rule of thumb, like if you're making lights, you know, make one light at a time. Make sure you get the light where you want it, and then turn on the next light. Because if you have like 20 lights on and you're trying to tweak this and tweak that, you really don't know, you know, what's being changed. It gets kind of confusing a little bit. So I kind of just turn off those lights for now, and you can see like when the lights are off, we can barely even see like our model. You know what I mean? We have light properties as well here. The shadow is the you know, do we want a shadow on our light or not? SSS is Subsurface Scattering, and if we want it on, basically when the light hits certain areas, if you're using a subsurface material, like skin, the light will kind of shine through it. So that's pretty much what that is for the most part. And then you can change the intensity of it with this curve. Now the background, you can mess around in here. You can load environment textures basically, and mess around in this background. You can add an image in here. I could add my image back here again, you know, if I wanted to. But the difference is, it looks like she's trying to shoot the dragon. Don't shoot the dragon, please. The difference is that this is like an environment. When you have an environment, light reflects off your environment onto something, if it's a reflective surface. So you would use this to load in, like, you could load in like a different kind of image, and then it would take the light information and, you know, kind of reflect it on there. But actually, for this one, the background, it literally just puts a background. It doesn't do it. It doesn't do much. You know, and then you can control the background. Like, do you want to blur it out? You can blur out the background. You know, you might find a use for this. I don't know. I like to do tweaking and things like that in Photoshop, but you know, you could put it in there if you want. Ain't nothing wrong with that. I'm just going to turn it off for now. Okay, the light cap. Okay, so with the light cap, instead of using this, you can use light cap, which is this. And light caps are the spears of light. How do I explain this in a way you would understand? Let's see. Well, diffuse is color. That controls your color, right? And specular controls the shine. So if we want to do like a specular, we can click new light. And now we have one light in our scene, right? Before we didn't have any lights at all because we had deleted. See, we even turned off these lights. See, these lights are still off. We're still getting light here because we're using a matte cap now. And literally, if you just drag this anywhere, you could actually see there's a spear here, or a circle, whatever you want to call it. But you know, where you drag it dictates on what kind of, you know, highlight you might get, right? So generally, this is this is a better way of working. This was introduced a little later, you know, but before ZBrush only had this before, but now this is the way to do it to get some nice effects. And you can add multiple lights. So if I hit new light, for example, I now have 2 lights in here, and you can see light index is 2. If I go to 1, I'm in 1. I mean, to really show that change, I could change the color of a light. So maybe I'll make this one like a reddish, right? And you can see that it's red here, and then if I go to light 1, you can see that one's white, right? So if I go to light 2, again, I could change the strength to really kind of hit home. If I go to light 1, you can see the strength's at 0.25, but this one's a little higher. So the aperture controls how much of a coverage area the light has on the object. So if I make, it depends like on your material too, you know, like the kind of material you're going for. You could see, you could really do some, you know, I can only hit it for like a little bit, and you get kind of like a metallic feel. And then if you get you get a wider feel here with this light. This light's literally turning this red. So you can get some pretty cool effects with this. I definitely encourage you to mess around with it. I'll go back to light 1 index, and I have a white light here. We can just raise that up a little bit so we can see what's going on. And then we can pretty much change it to what kind of mode we want. You know, do we want to diffuse for the light, or do we want diffuse is the color, or do we want the specular, which is the shine? So I mean, this is kind of looking cool a little bit. Let's add another light. One. So now we'll have 3 lights. I'll go to the 3rd light, and then I'll change the color. And you can literally just drag the color anywhere you want. Kind of mess around, you know, and then position it where you want. Try to see if I can get it like, you can get kind of like a rim light effect, which I'm going to try to see if I can do. Oh, you know, I'm in light 1. Double check what light you're in here. Make sure you're in light 3. And then you can kind of basically move the light around. You can see I'm getting a light here. I'm going to bump that up a little higher so you can really see it. Now you can see like the light's hitting this. And if I increase the aperture, it kind of blows it out a little bit, you know. If you don't want the light to have like the shadow information, you can take it down to 0. There's a fall off for the light as well, and that's how much of the area it's covering as well. So you can mess with the fall off, and you can blow it out to get like a comic-y feel, kind of, you know. If you blow this out, if you blow the fall off to like 0, you get more of like a harder line, so it's kind of comic-y looking. And then if you take the fall off and you put it up a little higher, you get some cool stuff going on. You get like a little bit of highlights here, so you could really get some cool stuff. I'm not really going to create an environment, but you can create an environment from the light cap. So you can make an environment from this light here, and it'll tell you if converts the light cap into a background, which is automatically loaded as a background image. You know, if you want, you can do that. You can create a texture from the light as well. Okay, and like I say, if you hit Control, it kind of tells you what these things do, which is helpful. So yeah, I mean, the best way to learn how to use these things is literally get in there and just mess around, until you figure something out that works. You got the preview right here, so you really can't go wrong for the most part. I'm gonna try to see if I can get more of a. See how I'm getting more of a line there? See that? So you could use this as like a rim light and get like an outline going on, and then kind of tweak things a little bit. How much of an outline do you want? This is basically called a rim light. You could hit BPR, which is Best Preview Render, it stands for, and it allows you to render out your scene basically. But you could see that my shadowing, right, is kind of just making it dark the way the shadowing is right now. But we'll go over that a little later. But yeah, light caps. So we got 3 lights in our scene: 1, 2, and then 3 right there. So you could delete a light here. You can add another light. You can go back and forth by clicking these buttons here. And it's kind of equivalent to this, but like I said, it's a lot easier to use. I've always had issues kind of using this one up here, but this one is more kind of, how do I say it? It hit home a little bit more for me personally. So find what works for you best. But I mean, we get pretty good results with this, so I'll stick with this. You could use a blend mode if you want to blend certain effects, and you could just mess around with these things here and see what they do. You could see, like, if I do a blend mode of glow, get it like a glow going on here. Hue. So you can get some pretty cool effects just kind of messing around. And it's a lot of fun. Pin light, vivid light. That might give us something good. Kind of looks the same, but. Alright, so yeah, blend mode, overlay, soft light. In Photoshop, we have these kind of options too. We've got multiply. We have a darken. And then if you want, just put it up to normal again. I'll just put it to normal for now. Light cap adjustments rather. We have an exposure. Like, we can really blow out this light cap. I wouldn't really mess with this too much. I mean, you probably could go in like reverse maybe or something, but you can mess with these settings though. Use material curves, use material diffuse and specular curves. With the material curves enables you can use the standard material shaders, diffuse and specular curve to modulate the diffuse and spec information. I didn't set up any curves or anything, so we don't have to worry about that. Light cap horizon. You can mess with that if you want. You can see I'm getting kind of a different kind of effect here. It's kind of overkill, so I'll dial it down a little bit. Well, now we're getting like a red highlight there, which is kind of cool. There's like a no in between on this one here. Oh, there we go. That looks kind of cool. You can see the render, it makes it all kind of red. But you can see like pretty fast you can get some cool effects going on, you know what I mean? It's not that hard to play around. Just experiment. See what it does. Yeah. Raise this, raise that. See what it does. If it doesn't look good, put it back down. Light types. Well, right now we're using the light as the sun, like sunlight, which is kind of like a natural light. You could do a point light as well. You could do a spotlight, glow light, or a radial light. So I'll just keep it a sun for now. The placement of the light is the location of the light. Light shadowing. We could lower the shadowing of the light itself or raise it. You kind of can see a preview here on your material. And then we have environment maps. So we can change the intensity of the map. There's a lot of crazy stuff you can do with this. So in a nutshell, that's kind of a crash course in lights, you know. But definitely, like, once you sculpt something, you know, mess around with the light. I mean, you can mess around too with the light, just move it around and see, like, oh, this area looks flat. You know, maybe I want to go back and, you know, maybe I want to fix this area. Oops. Maybe I want to fix this. You know, maybe I'm starting to see something under the light that I didn't see before. So you can kind of just, you can go to your light cap and move things around and see what's working, what's not working. You know, I would say, like, if you are doing something like that, you should probably only have like one light on. Just put one light on and move it around on your object, and then see if it's working good. Like if every shape's coming out, or if any area looks flat to you, or anything like that. Macros. Well, see macros. Well, if we hit new macro. Macros kind of record actions. So, you know, I could do something and then hit end macro, and it'll record it in there. So I hit end macro, and you could save out the macro as a Z script. But that's kind of like a scripting thing, like recording actions, basically, in a way. And there's a lot of crazy stuff in here. And, you know, it's just really meant to, like, kind of speed up the way you do stuff. That's what a macro is. You know, you can create a macro of something you probably do a lot. Markers, I don't use. I'm going to tell you right now, I never use it. I believe what it is, it's like you can mark an object's position, and then if you make a new object, you can have it go in that same position instead of having something here and something there. But I don't use it. Oops, am I in see-through mode? I am in see-through mode. Sorry, let me fix this. Okay, so that was markers. We don't use it. Materials. We kind of sort of went over materials. Basically, like with materials, you could save out custom materials. And let me just close all this stuff out because it gets a little confusing. Let me pull up material. I'll click this, bring it over here. And you can see right here we can load materials. The materials are right here. You could choose all different kinds of materials. And that would be, you know, what is the material of your object that you're creating? If you're creating something metal, you want to go to your material and you'll choose metal, like metal 01. And then you could fill objects. Make sure the M's on. Click fill object. And now we have a metallic surface, right? So that gives us that look, and it's keeping the lighting. The lighting is being reflected onto this material. If skin shade is like for humans and stuff, like skin, gel is like well, I'll show you. Here it is. Gel has that kind of look. There's all different kinds of looks, and you know, different materials for the job depending on the surface that you're trying to mimic in real life. Or maybe you just want to mess around and just click fill object, and you know, maybe you're like, oh, that looks cool. You know, maybe you want to work with this. I mean, it might be what you want. You never know. Never know till you give it a try. I'll just keep it on basic material for now. We can copy a material. You can see I have a material here, right? And I can copy the material that I currently have. And I don't even know which one it was. What was a basic material too, right? So you could copy the material that you have and create a new material. I'm not sure if it's going to do it. I haven't done this in a while. But you can copy and paste materials, and by hitting copy material. Well, let's see. The copy material button copies the current material in preparation for pasting into another location in the palette. Pasting will replace the material in the chosen area or whatever. So you can basically, you know, duplicate these materials in here and then paste the material, you know, once you tweak something or whatever the case is. You could also save it as a startup material, which is a newer kind of thing. If you want to start ZBrush with this material on your object every time you load it, you could choose Save Startup Material. If you go to Lightbox Materials, you can see there's a few materials in here. There's two. They might as well just put it in here, but that's that. Now, wax modifiers. It tells you it's for wax. It's for the Bpr render. For real-time wax preview, activate the wax preview on the render property subtab palette. So if we go to preferences, or if we go to render properties, and then we turn on wax material, wax preview, and then we hit render, we'll get a render with like a wax material kind of look when we hit it. And then you can choose how strong that wax material is and things of that nature. So let me see here. So that's in the render, but we didn't do the render yet. We'll get to it. The modifiers, here we go. We can copy a shader. Right now is S1, which is the first shader. So I could copy this shader, and I could paste the shader on this material. And you can kind of like, you know, mess around. Ambient, you know, you can make that, you can kind of dial this down. So you can really change the way a material looks, you know, just by tweaking things. Specular is how shiny is the material. You know, is the material transparent? Is it 100% transparent? Is it not transparent? I don't even think it's going to show us transparent right now, but we'll get to that a little later. You can change the reflectivity of the material. The metallicity, like, is it metallic? You can add noise to the material. there's a bunch of options in here, and cavity razor. I mean, it's just so much. And they're all sliders, so just change it, see what it does. A lot of these, it's kind of it's going to be kind of overwhelming because you're not going to really understand the lingo. Like specular, like I already is kind of like the way that it's the shine, how the light is cast on the, how shiny is it? How shiny is the object? Transparency is like, you know, how opaque is the object. Metallicity is it a metallic surface? How reflective is the object? You know, is it super reflective or is this a little reflective? Noise is just if you want to add noise to it. You can make it a noisy surface, but I don't even know if it's going to show. Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's going to show right now. There's a color bump. It kind of changes the color of the material a little bit. There's a colorized diffuse, which has to do with color. There's a lot of different stuff in here. It's just so much. You can see right here we have diffuse, specular, ambient occlusion, and cavity. And diffuse is a color. Okay. So if you want to give your material overall color, this is how you would do it. You want to make sure your diffuse is up though, all the way. Our lighting is also kind of messing with our material, what we're seeing for our material. So it's probably confusing with that said. Don't even worry about it. Mixer. I don't really use this, but you can mix some materials together. Like if you want to add I think if you want to add like another material, you can mix it in there. But I don't mess with that. I think this only works when you render out. I think. Maybe not. I'll have to refresh myself on that. Environment. This is the shadow of the environment, and ambient occlusion, which is like the shadowing information in a way. There's a matte cap maker. So you can make a matte cap in here. You got your gloss, you got this. You know, but basically, you know, play around. Most time you will go, after you copy like your material, you can go in here in the shaders and mess around with these sliders and try to get that kind of material that you're looking for. Beginner. This is beginner, so not too worried about it. Movie. In ZBrush, you can record what you do in a form of a movie. So you can record the history. And then you see you can click record. And you could just start doing stuff in here. So maybe I'll just do... Oops. Maybe I'll just kind of do something like this. Control Z. And, or maybe I'll just pull this out. Pull this down a little bit. Pull this up a little bit. And then you can pause it and you can play back what you recorded. So it basically you can export a movie. And you can see right here you can export a movie. If you hit H, you can export it at the highest quality possible. And this is good if you want to upload a time lapse of you sculpting on the YouTube or something like that. Or, you know, or wherever, you know, like I said, you just click record, start sculpting, click pause, and then export the movie at the highest quality or however you want to do it. And you could always play the movie first to make sure you like the way it looks. You can see that this has like the ZBrush logo. That's coming up because of the title, the overlay right here. I think if you just turn that off, you won't see it. In one of those areas, it's probably this one. But don't quote me on it. Yeah, you see how it disappeared? All right. So the title controls that. The overlay, I think the overlay is prominent on there. Yeah, you see right here, it makes the ZBrush logo there. You could load in your own image too, which is cool. So if I want, I can load in, well, heck, I can just import and load in my logo, which is the Let's Learn 3D. And then if I hit play movie, you can see it has the Let's Learn 3D. So that's pretty cool. And you can change the position. That's what this does here. You know, like where you want this at. You can change the opacity of how strong this is. So I mean, it's pretty cool. You can do a lot in ZBrush. You know? Modifiers, you can change the way like it's zooming in. Like, do you want it to auto zoom in on your model while you're working when it records? Right now it's at 0. You want to record at 24 frames per second. How fast do you want it to be played back? Right now it's at 48 frames per second. So you can mess with that. There's a snapshot playback time. I don't really mess with that. There's a skip menus and on mouse. It's a whole bunch of options in here. You could change the quality of as well in here as well. Right here on the quality slider. Now the timeline. Well, heck, let's export one of these. I mean, it's going to be small anyway, so let's just do export at highest quality. So we'll hit H and we'll hit export movie. And you can see right here, I can save it as an MPEG file format. And I just saved it to the desktop. Now it's done. And then if I go here to ZBrush Movie, I'll just use this for now. Windows Video Player, whatever. There it is. I got a video already. You know what I mean? Like I already got a video of what I just recorded. It's pretty cool. The timeline has a load, a save option, a show. By default, you don't see the timeline. If I click show, now we can see the timeline. And the timeline allows you to do just small things like, you know, I can go to maybe like here and then, you know, do a change. You know, I don't use the timeline to be honest, but it basically kind of records what you do and then it goes back. But yeah, you can do you can reload audio as well. The loading audio was literally like you would just press load audio, look for an audio file, load it in there, and then when you export your movie, it'll have audio in it. So that's pretty cool. You know, it's like two birds with one stone. All right, so I'm not really gonna mess around with this because I don't really mess with timeline, to be honest with you. But you can click to add points like a keyframe. And you can see it kind of went back to the other way. So I'm not really going to mess with that. There's timeline tracks, and that's like, these are tracks. You can choose what you want to record in the timeline. You can record the floor. You can record Z-spheres. We didn't learn that yet. Transparency, wireframes, color, whole bunch of stuff. Overlay images, we went over. Title images, we went over. Title images, what shows when the video first starts. And you could change that too. So I will change that to my image. And then overlay, what I'll do for overlay is I'll just take it to 0 opacity. If I play movie, I'm pretty sure I didn't do it right, but there you go. Now we have 2 of them. It's kind of weird. Let's just say if I put this up, and we'll just do texture off for that. Oh, it's going to go to the default when you do that. I had this back. I think I have it backwards, but I always get these two confused. Like, what's the overlay? What's this one? But that's pretty much what movie does. Movie does what you would expect it to do. It does movie stuff. Picker. I don't use these at all. I never use this. And I probably say this a lot, but there's a lot of things in ZBrush you won't use. I mean, then there's stuff that you will use. Picker is something I can honestly say out of my years of using ZBrush, I've never used in my life. And I honestly don't even know what it does. But encloses information such as orientation, depth, color, and material to be picked only from the active layer and all other layers to be ignored. Okay. So you can pick color from a certain layer and stuff like that. I don't use that, to be honest. Preferences. Man, here's the preferences is like the nitty gritty of ZBrush, right? It's kind of the settings. Settings of ZBrush, let's just say. And there's a lot of settings in ZBrush. A lot. If you initialize ZBrush, it will initialize ZBrush to like the beginning. It'll restore all palettes and document data to the default conditions. So I don't want to do that. That'll basically give me kind of a clean slate, as if like I guess it's kind of like factory default in a way. You can restore custom user interfaces, because you can save custom UIs. If you have customized your user interface, this button allows you to easily switch back to the standard interface as long as you have saved your customizations using the store config button. Right. So if you store your current configuration in a file, you could restore the standard UI instead of using that one if you wanted to. You can load different user interfaces that you created. Okay. And all this is customizable. Like in the interface, I can move any of this stuff around if I want. When you click like enable customize, you can move all this stuff. When you hold Control Alt, you can move. I can move this over here if I wanted to. Like, why would I move that there? But I mean, there's people they have their set up a certain way. Okay, let's take this for example. Maybe we want to take our light, right? And we want to take our light cap. I don't know if it's going to let us do it. Oops. I don't think I want to do that. I didn't want to rename that, but I renamed it. You could see right here, I can actually move my lighting around. So I actually have it, I docked it in here. Which is a quick way to kind of move your lighting around without actually having to go into the menu or anything like that. So this is a customization I just did right now. Another customization that you can do, you can take a snapshot of what you did. It'll save it out. Wouldn't even worry about all that. This one is pop-up information. I don't mess with that. It's just like how the information pops up in the palettes, I believe. Hotkeys, you can set custom hotkeys like keyboard shortcuts. So you can save your own set of hotkeys. Like I can set these to hotkeys. Oops. Oh, I have to figure out how to set keyboard shortcuts again because it's been a minute since I've done it. So let me just see if we can figure out real quick. ZBrush set keyboard shortcuts, because keyboard shortcuts come in very handy. On my other system, I have everything already set up. So, but let's see. Wherever the control key is mentioned, Or combinations, yeah. ZBrush comes with many default. Also, custom hotkeys can be assigned. All right, so custom hotkeys is what we want. Here we go. Press and hold Control and Alt and click on the interface item you want to assign a hotkey to. I think this does not, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think this works when you're in Customize. So let me just double check something here. If I take off Enable Customize and I click Control and Alt, there it is. Press any combination to assign a hotkey. It says it up top. Press any, right there. Press any key combination to assign hotkey. So I usually will do like 1. So you can see it even says standard 1. I'll hit Control and Alt and I'll click, and I'll do a 2. Control Alt click 3. Control Alt click 4. Control Alt click 5. Control Alt click 6. Control Alt click 7. Control Alt click 8, and Control Alt click 9. Let's just do that. Okay, so what we just did was we just stored hotkeys, and what I can do instead of clicking on these brushes here, I just assign this 1 through 9. So if I click 1, I can cycle through different keys. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so that's definitely super, super handy. You don't even have to touch these down here. And the way that you save that is you go into hotkeys and you can click. You can store these as startup hotkeys. All right, so every time you start ZBrush, you can use your hotkeys you just assigned for your brushes. You can also save out the hotkeys too if you don't want it. If you just want to kind of load it manually or something, you could do that. It's entirely up to you. All right, so remember, configuration, enable, customize. If this isn't enabled, you can't drag these things around, okay? You can't mess around with the interface. Now, here we go, interface. UI, you can change the button size. And it says the UI is going to be adjusted next time you restart ZBrush. I'll put it down to the default button size, which is 52, but you can change the size of these buttons. You can auto hide 2D tools if you don't want to see like a 2D tool if you're getting confused with too much stuff going on. You can colorize the menu that's floating. You could really tweak like everything to your heart's content in here. You can change the palettes. Like right now it says open one sub palette. If you unclick that, then it'll just keep everything open automatically. And the palette is like one of these is a palette. So if you have this open and this open, that's all palettes. UI groups, I don't really mess with that. Sub palette, we don't care about that. The click time, the click distance. I mean, they thought of everything. It's just like too much stuff. Z modeler, we didn't learn that yet, but you can change the selection distance on your Z modeler. Navigation, like how you navigate around. I don't generally change that, but you could change like the way this rotates around. You could change how fast this can rotate and things like that. Expose. So expose is if you have multiple things. You can see there's an expose button here. And if you have multiple subtools on one layer, you click expose. It'll kind of explode them all out all over the place, which is handy for like baking, or maybe it's handy for just painting it out or something if you have multiple pieces. Then we have a miscellaneous here. I don't know. I don't really mess with that. Icons, delays. Don't really mess with that. This I mess with. Custom UI. So create a new menu. Let's do it. So I have enabled customize on. Click create new menu, and I'll just call it Let's Learn 3D. Oops, make sure you click in there. It's highlighted in blue. Let's Learn 3D. I'm going to click enter. You can see I just made a menu right here. I literally have my own menu, a custom menu. And then if I dock that menu for the Let's Learn 3D, I could add stuff in this menu. Okay, so what would you add in that menu? Well, I would add AccuCurve is something I definitely would add. I'm going to add some of the stuff that I would add right now, actually. Let me just... oops, I don't want to do that. You can see my menus right here, my custom menus right here. So I can add in under auto masking. Actually, we want to add in backface mask. That's something we want to add in. So we'll hold Control and Alt, and we'll click and we'll drag it in our custom menu. And if I go up here, you can see I have it now. You know, it's in there. It's so cool. And it gets even cooler. I'll show you in a second. So that's one thing I would use. Another is the gravity. The strength of the gravity. So I'll close out auto masking and I'll hold Control and Alt and I'll take this gravity thing here and I'll just drag it down here and I'll drag down the gravity strength as well. Right? Because gravity is something that you can change. Depth is something that you might want to change every now and again. You know, how far something is in the surface. Spotlight projection is another thing that's kind of hidden in the menu, so I like to have it in there. But you can see if I hold Control and Alt and I do this, I can basically put whatever I want in there. Like anything I want, you know, in this custom menu. I can put whatever I want. So it's good, man, because there's so much stuff in ZBrush. So things you use a lot, definitely throw it in there. Definitely throw it in there. You'll be working like a pro by doing that. All right, you'll definitely be working like a pro by doing that. I'll just throw some quick stuff in there that I use a lot. So, oops. And you see, you gotta just hold Control and Alt and drag these into place. I don't really use this one. And radial count, yeah. We'll learn about that. I'll teach you the symmetry stuff, but that's stuff that I use a lot. So I just added it in there to the fun. And then when you're done, you know, you have your menu and you're done everything. You can go to config and click enable customize, close that out, and we can store this configuration so every time we start ZBrush we have it. We have our custom menu here. If I hold Control and Alt and I click on a menu, I can assign a hotkey to the menu. I usually assign the semicolon next to the L key. And now look at this. I could literally pull up my custom menu on the fly here. How awesome is that? And now I could change, you know, the gravity strength. I can do whatever I want now in here. So it's a pretty fast way of working. Backface mask, all that stuff. So cool. All right, let's just move along here. Because right now we're in the meat and the guts of ZBrush. I do want to go back to hotkeys, and I will store this hotkey. So since we just added the other hotkey to it. Custom UI, we just did that. We made a custom menu. You can make a custom sub palette, which is a palette like this, but I'm not really going to do that. You could actually see here, we could actually change the color scheme of things. See that here? So I could change the way all this stuff looks. What it's doing is it's taking the color. So if I make this red and then I click, it's going to make stuff red. Like watch, click. Just start clicking on everything. Or, you know, if I want these buttons to be blue, I could click right there. The inner part of the buttons, if I want it to be red, I don't know, let's say red for no reason. There you go. So, I mean, you could literally change everything and it's awesome. So you can really customize this to make ZBrush look like, you know, how you want it to look. You know, maybe you have certain colors in mind that you want to use. And like I said, the best way to mess with this, you know, you just kind of just mess around and see how these things work. Let's change to like a purple color and just kind of click submenu. So you can see the submenu has a purple color. So cool. So cool. Let's move along here. Pop-up opacity. I mean, it's just, don't mess with this, guys. Don't mess with this. You'll probably spend like some time messing with that, I'm pretty sure. Memory. I don't mess with memory, but you could change your memory for ZBrush, like how much memory it's using and stuff like that. You could, auto compact is, I mean, I keep everything to default most of the time unless I'm having issues, but you shouldn't really have issues unless you have like a lower grade machine for the most part. But even with a lower grade machine, you probably won't even need to mess with it. But there are some options to mess with the memory. One that's useful, I would say, is the number of undos you can do on each of the tools. You know, you might want to bump that up. You might want to put it down. Things of that nature. Go ahead, experiment. Z-Sphere we didn't learn yet, but you could change the color of Z-Spheres. Z-Script, you can have automatic session recording. I don't, you know, do automatic session recordings personally, but I like to have full control over everything. Lightbox we already went over, but there's just more advanced settings for Lightbox in here. Open at launch, all sorts of settings in here. The draw is your maximum draw size of your brush. Like how big can you make your brush? See that? I could really make it huge. I'm at like 2000 right now, which is unreal. But sometimes you might be using ZBrush and you can't make your brush any bigger and you got to make a big change. So max brush size can definitely come in handy for you. The dynamic brush scale I don't really mess with. Remember draw size per brush. You can actually set it to remember the draw size for each of the brushes. Like, you know, if I want my flattened brush to always be, you know, remember this size for my flattened brush, then, you know, we can remember that. Well, that's kind of funky. Oops. Anyway, don't mess with that right now. Magnify Glass. I don't even know what a Magnify Glass is. Oh, maybe it's this thing. Curvature radius. I don't know. I don't really mess with that. Tablet. Yeah, we're using a Wacom tablet. It says use tablet. You can set your sensitivity on. You know, if you're not getting the pressure properly or something, you can mess with it here. You can set what kind of pressure you're getting. Performance. I don't mess with any of this stuff. I mean, if you have issues, you can do a test multi-threading, and you could do a multi-read optimizer. You can mess around if you're having issues, but I don't really mess with this. We have different colors for different cursors, I guess, but again, it's all a bunch of stuff that you probably won't even use. Transpose line, you can change a transpose line, which I didn't even show you guys yet, but you can see I have a gizmo here, but originally if you press Y, originally we had this, which is a transpose line, and this was the way we used to, you know, edit our objects, was using this line. We would draw this line out, and then we would click like an inner circle and we would move this where we want it to go. But now, and if I click Y, I go back to the other one, but now this is more This is more what you would find in most 3D applications, so I'm happy that ZBrush added this because it makes life so much easier, personally. So kudos to the Pixelogic team for doing that. Transpose unit, we can set units. And it's set to units. Click enter. I don't mess with this. I'm messing everything up. Oh well. Gizmo 3D. You can change the gizmo. If I hit this is a Gizmo 3D, which is this thing here. And if I hit like next gizmo, you can load different gizmo styles in there. You know, maybe you like this, maybe you like the Hellraiser box instead. And you can add your own in there too, which is kind of cool. You can change the size of the gizmo. A lot of stuff in there. Geometry, I don't mess with this. Dynamesh close holes, I don't really mess with all that. Miscellaneous, use default ZBrush folders. Auto tighten cursor, total points count, current subtools. I currently have 2 subtools in the scene. My total point count right now is 2 million. That's pretty much what that's saying. Undo history, change the number of maximum undos in the timeline. Quick save, you might want to, if you're running out of space, like if you're using like a solid state drive, you can lower the amount of quick saves that it saves if it's saving on your default drive, and you have like a solid state. Or you can do like you can link the folder through Windows command and just link it to a different drive if it's becoming an issue or something like that. Utilities, I don't mess with it. Language, English, of course. Well, not of course, I shouldn't say that, but English, yes. Yes, English. Boolean, we didn't learn yet. Boolean's when you cut into another object, there's some settings in there. And it just clean slithers, you know, allows you for detecting and deleting slithers in your Boolean. Go Z. How do I explain this? So Go Z, it allows you to connect to an external application. Like, for example, we can Go Z something to 3D Studio Max. And we can click browse. It'll usually say like it doesn't find. It'll usually say it doesn't find a version of the program. So usually you just have to manually go to the drive and say it's there. I promise you it's there. I'm just doing 3ds Max. I'm just showing you guys how to link it up, but you basically just go in here and you would link up 3D Studio Max. Right here, 3ds Max. And click open. And then it's going to say you have to install. It's going to install a plugin in the 3ds Max folder, basically. So we have a path to 3ds Max now. And you're probably, what does that even mean? Well, I could take this and I can bring it into another program. So I could, you can see right here I have a Go Z option. So if I hit Go ZBrush and then hit continue, you can just click what you don't have. So I can click not installed, not installed, not installed. And then right here I have 3D Studio Max because I already had it. So what it's going to do is it's going to take your 3D model and it's going to bring it into 3ds Max. So that's what Go Z is. So it allows you to make the connection between different applications with ZBrush. Because usually, maybe there's a shape you're not getting and you want to bring your model in. Like maybe I want to put like a belt around the dragon I don't know why I would put a belt around the dragon, but let's say I want to put a belt around the dragon. I want to create the belt in 3ds Max. So I would go into Max once this loads up, make the belt, and then go Z it back out and to bring it back in ZBrush, and it'll update in ZBrush. So it's kind of a way to work a little bit more seamlessly between programs. And it can be wonky at times. Decimation Master, when you decimate a model, you basically make it a lower version so that so it's not so heavy in polygon count, so it's not like a million. So you get like a lower version, but it tries to retain the detail, which is nice. All right, so that's all the options and preferences. I mean, there's a slew of them. Let's not even go into any more preferences. Let's get out of it. Let's close this out. Close. Okay. Oh, the 3ds Max takes a while to load, by the way. So I don't know. It's probably going to pop up in like a year, and be like, "Here it is. Is this what you wanted?" All right, render. So render is pretty cool, obviously, because you can render out your scene. You can see when I click here, I have a BPR, which is your best preview render, and I'm really not doing it justice right now. So let's try to render that out again. But when you render out a scene, what it's doing is it's calculating shadows and whatever else that you have selected. You can see I have shadowing here now. So when you render, it's set to preview by default, which is like the best, which is like the regular preview. Then there's a fast renderer, but then there's a best renderer. So if you choose best renderer and you render it out, you're going to get a better quality render. It's good to use like preview at first to get what you want first, and then when you really want the money shot, go for the best after that. Change it from preview to best. And to know what it's picking up is to know what's highlighted here. So this will activate ambient occlusion on your render. So if I click that again, I'm going to get my ambient occlusion. I'm going to get the shadowing. I'm going to get this wax preview. I'm going to get all these different options in my renderer. Okay. I could take wax preview off. SSS is subsurface scattering. Like I said before, it's good for like human flesh. You would activate that for rendering. View blur, I never really used. Transparent. This will activate if a tool has transparency, then like when you render it, it'll render transparent depending on what how you set it up. So if you were doing like a piece of glass or something and the tool had opacity and you could see through it, you would turn transparent on because you want a transparent pass of that render. Render fibers, we're not doing that, but I think that has to do with the rendering the fiber materials in render mode. Yeah, 3D fibers, but we don't have any 3D fibers like here or anything. Activate HD geometry rendering. We didn't do any HD geometry yet, but if you did HD geometry, which is you can get a little bit more detail in things, you can turn this on and it'll render that out. Render def queue, don't really use that too much. But there's a fog setting too, so if I do render fog and just render this out, I'll get like a foggy kind of effect going on. I don't even know what happened with that. I usually don't do that. I do those kind of effects like in Photoshop, to be honest, but I just want to usually get my model out and then get it in Photoshop most of the time. But maybe you might be different. You never know. Right here, if we go to Bpr Render Pass, let me explain what a Render Pass is. A Render Pass is it's rendering out a specific part of what you have selected here. So, for example, I have a shadow map because I have shadows turned on. And you could tweak these on layers in Photoshop and fine-tune these and mess around with all sorts of stuff to really get the effect you want. You could change the color in Photoshop of it, all sorts of stuff. Ambient occlusion map right here. I have an ambient occlusion map, which is grabbing some light and shadow information. And I have a depth map, like the depth of the object. And what happens with all these maps is if you click on them, if I click like def map, you could save these out as a Photoshop file and open it in Photoshop. All right, so we did a render already, right? We rendered a few things out. So what we can do is we could save these into a folder, right? So I'm going to show you that. Let me show you how that works. You would do your renders. This is after like you sculpted and you model, you set up everything the way you want it. You get these renders. And you can save them on different layers. So I could save out this Bpr def. I could save out this shadow layer. And I could save out the ambient occlusion layer. And I could save out a mask. A mask is good to save out if you want to, subtract it from the background. So you can see I just saved out four different files. And then what you do is you bring it in Photoshop and you would kind of load it in there. Oh, look, 3ds Max did open up. I don't think it even brought in my model though. It's kind of wonky. You see what it didn't even bring in the model. Let's hit Go Z again. Because I just want to see. Oh man, it's trying to open 3ds Max again. Oh my goodness. Don't do that. Don't open Max again. Hold on one second. We gotta close this out before it becomes an issue. I'm just closing out 3ds Max because we don't need it open. Now it's open in the next 3ds Max. But maybe we could probably have that one open. Let's see. What it's trying to do is just trying to load in my model. Let's not even worry about it right now. Not important. Not important for this lesson. But yeah, if I go in Photoshop right now, I could load in the things that I made. So let's see. All right, real quick, we're gonna go to our beginner. So right here, I have all my Photoshop files. I can just hold Shift, click, highlight them all, drag them all in at the same time. And now we're in Photoshop. We're not in ZBrush anymore. And then what you can do is you can hold Shift, and you can drag. You can basically drag these into the other file, like this mask here. I can hold Shift, drag it in there. It's overwriting it, so you might want to make a new layer. Bpr shadow. Man, nothing is working for me today. Yeah, you basically would just drag everything in. See, I can move this layer and this one. Okay. Hold Shift. See, I just brought in a mask. And hold Shift. You can basically just start bringing in everything. But there's an easier way to do this, because I always seem to get this all messed up sometimes. You can actually go, I'm going to skip a little bit, but if you go to Z plugin, under Z plugin, there's a ZBrush to Photoshop, which works with Photoshop CC, which is what I use. So I could send it to Photoshop instead. And what it's going to do is it's going to take a render of this. Oops. And then it's going to open it in Photoshop. It's going to basically kind of do what I was trying to do, but with a little bit more in-depth. So right now, it it literally set up that. I mean, that's a bad render example, but you know, you can see I have a mask here. I have the background separated from my model. And I have a shadow here, right? So if I want, I can go in here and I can change the shadow. Like I could just do a color overlay or something. I want red shadow instead. And then you could choose, instead of multiply, you can change it to something else. You know, mess around. Pass through allows like the effects to pass through. But yeah, so that's a different way that you can do it. Alright, but we're not really going to worry about that right now. Just want to show you another way to do it. Okay, where were we? So yeah, so we save out render passes, like the def pass. You can see we can just save out all these different passes. Shaded passes, the color, ambient occlusion, and we can turn these on and off. We can even, like, if you want, you could just do a render of just ambient occlusion. Maybe all you want is a map of ambient occlusion. You know, so if you want, you could just do that. You can render it out. I mean, you don't need to re-render though, but ambient occlusion does take a little time to apply. So right here, I have an ambient occlusion. Bpr transparency, we don't have transparency on, so we can't change the transparency effect. But if you did have an object that was transparent, and you have transparency on, you can tweak the strength of the transparency and everything here for when it renders out. Bpr shadow, let's turn back on shadow. And you can see now this highlights, you know, being on. You know, if you don't like the way the angle is, like on the shadow, I'm going to hit Control Z. If you don't like how the shadow, let's get a different material. Let's just use a basic material, and I'll do a fill. I'll do a fill object. Okay, it's picking up the lighting, so that's all right. Whatever. But yeah, if you do a render, it's going to grab the shadow. It's going to try to mimic, not mimic, but simulate shadow effect, right? So right here, you can see it does a shadow. If I change the angle of the shadow and then I go back and click that Bpr, you know, you could see it kind of tweak things a little bit. If I change the angle again, takes a second. You could see things are changing here. You could change the fall off. You can change the distance to get a different shadowy effect on your render. This is what you would mess with, the Bpr render. All right, so now I'm getting something completely different than what before I was just getting like a half of his face in shadow. So if I take that angle back down, I'll probably get something like, you know, shadowing half of the face again. Yep, see? So that's pretty much what that is. Bpr AO, that's ambient occlusion, which was that just controls the ambient occlusion of this layer here. All these layers combined create what you see here. Like when you render this out, now it's not rendered, but when you render this out, what you're seeing is a combination of the effort of the shadowing, of the ambient occlusion, of a diffuse, all together combined as one. And in Photoshop, like I was saying before, you can tweak those effects, change colors, have little, you know, fine-tune things a little bit better to get a final image, right? So that's what the rendering does. It helps you get that final image. Or you just get a nice little render just for fun. Subsurface scattering is the Bpr SSS. We'll go over that a little later. Not now, but later on. Bpr filters. You can add different filter effects on your rendering. So if I do, I don't know why it's all not highlighted, but you could change everything in here to what you want it. Let me see, what is my render? If I set my render actually to best, right? Can I change it then? No? Okay. I have to look into that, but the filtering, you can add more rendering effects on top of rendering effects. And that's what this like F1 through F2 is. It's the first filter, the second filter that you're using, the third filter, all combined together. Anti-aliasing is the edging. Like, are you getting jagged edge, or are the edges coming in crisp? You can see, like, when I do by the way, when I do a best preview render, I'm getting a really nice crisp, well, dark shadow, but it looks better than a preview. So be mindful of that. To get the best, you got to set it to best. Def Q, I don't mess with that really. Fog, so this controls the intensity of fog if you have the fog on. But I usually use like a smoky brush, like in Photoshop, if I want a cloudy effect or something like that. Fast render, I don't really use fast render. I only use best preview render and the other one. Why can't I think of the names of these things today? Well, best. You know what I mean. We went through it already. Preview wax. I don't have that on. Environment. So right now there's an environment texture and it says that the environment's off. So let's see if we can turn it. We can turn the environment on. And I think if we render out, it's probably going to crash. That sound usually means it's going to crash. But it might not crash. But what it's trying to do is it's trying to render out like the environment onto the model. I think that's what it's going to do. When you have an hourglass like this, by the way, in ZBrush, you don't want to press anything. Usually, because it'll crash things. You don't want that. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to do it. Let's give it one more second here. Let me see. Del Scoville is asking on gamingtribe.com. He's saying, when I get some colored filaments, I'm going to make some figures to print. Not sure if any in between processing I need to do. I'm just assuming I need to convert the files to STL and run it through a slicer such as Cura. I'm not 100% sure about that. You can save out. There's a plugin for ZBrush for 3D printing, and you can save out the file and send it to the printer. Or you can use the program or you can load it into the program that your printer came with before you print it out. Like if you get a Formlabs printer, like I think they have their own software that you can throw it in there. So as far as converting the files to STL, it all depends on what you're using, and in the end I would just follow the 3D printer's documentation on how they handle that, because I think that kind of thing could vary, to be honest. But honestly, I never 3D printed anything. I need to get myself a 3D printer. I'm gonna get one eventually. So I'm gonna cancel this though, because as you can see, it's acting a fool. Sometimes if you hold escape, you can kind of get out of this, but we will have no such luck today, sir. All right, so let's just close it out, and just reopen the project. And honestly, I didn't save it with that. I don't think I saved it like with the color information. I'm not even sure what we're going to get back, but I just want to go through all the menus. while we're working here, I just want to go through all the menus real quick. Let's just go through everything real quick. I'm going to load one of my models. Well, I should probably load a dragon back. Yeah, we should probably load the dragon back, or the dino back, since we were working on the dino. Let me load the correct file. Whoops. Sorry, give me 1 second. One second. This thing, it acts wonky. Like when you load the application, it duplicates stuff. It's weird. I have to look into it. Acting weird. All right, let's just go back here. Load tool. Dino 5. Let's draw it on our canvas. And again, I apologize, guys. This is a live thing right now. It's kind of unrehearsed. So we lost the lighting information and everything like that, but that's all right. I mean, we could always redo it later. It's fine. So yeah, we were basically going through all the rendering in here, and I think what we were doing was trying to turn on the environment, and then it had crashed. So I usually don't even mess with that anyway. Adjustments I don't mess with. So I mean, that's pretty much in the render. I mean, honestly, in the render, what you're going to be using the most is render. Best preview render. If you have an external render, you can assign an external render and render in a different program like Keyshot, something like that. I'll demonstrate that in a future video for you. Render properties. You're not really gonna mess with that. You're gonna mess with Render Pass and probably like the shadow. All right, let's move along here. Stencil. Don't mess with this. What is this? Stencil on. Okay. I don't even know how to use the stencil, to be honest with you. I don't use it. And I am going to do like a project so you guys can see what it's like when I actually, use when I do an actual project. You're going to be able to see it, how I would go about doing the project. And I think when you see that, it'll make more sense. You'll see I won't even touch any of these menus a lot of the time. A lot of it's just sculpting with these brushes, and afterwards, you paint your model, you put your lighting on your model, and you render it out. Bring it into Photoshop for a final money shot, whatever you want to do. Or maybe you're working in like a game production. Maybe you're making the model, and then you're going to retopologize your model, and UV it, and bake the textures onto it. Bring it in a Substance Painter or whatever program you're using, or just bring it in a good old Photoshop and do the texturing work. So 100 different ways to skin a cat. It all depends on your workflow and what you're doing. I mean, guys using ZBrush that make movies, that do stuff for movies, they use different settings than what people would use for games. A concept artist will sculpt. Usually they'll add some colors and materials, and then they'll render it out, and they'll get that shot, for a concept, because they're not worried too much about how this looks, So, all right, let's just move along here. Stencil on. I don't use a stencil. The stencil on activates and deactivates the current stencil. I don't use stencils. I think, I don't know if Stencil is, man, I think Stencil has to do with this, like the Drawl. But I don't know. I have to look that up. Don't even worry about it. Don't worry about it. Move along. Stroke. Stroke is important. The stroke is how your brush stroke, looks. It is something that we use. You can see, like, here we have the same options that we kind of have here, and like I said, a lot of stuff mimics each other, but there's more advanced options. Like, you could replay like the last stroke that you made if you click replay last. So if I just sculpt here and I'm like, it was good, but it wasn't enough, I could click replay last. And it's going to, you see how it keeps intensifying that area? So I'll just click here, replay last, and it keeps getting it bigger and bigger. So if you have something and you like it and you just didn't go deep enough, like I just didn't go deep enough here, replay last. There we go. Now that's deep enough. Replay last, replay last. So that's what replay last does. It replays the last thing that you did. All right. Moving along, roll distance. Well, the roll distance is the roll of the brush on the surface. The Sculptris Pro as well. Sculptris Pro mode is, I kind of mentioned it before, but it puts detail in the right places, kind of thing. So if we have Sculptris Pro on, you can see like we get like a different color. And if I sculpt this area, oops, actually, the only downfall with Sculptris Pro is this is a setting that you use when you're still creating your mesh. You're still pulling out shapes, not fine tuning. But if I was to go, all right, let's just say I delete my subdivisions. Some of these options require that you don't have any subdivisions. Then if I turn on Sculptris Pro and I do something like this, what you can see here is it's adding just the geometry in the area I sculpted, and it's meshing. It's like, it's sealing it everywhere else. So you're not going to get pixelation or anything like that. I mean, right now it looks pixelated because I have this thing selected. So let's just select something regular. But if I just sculpt, it's going to add detail in just the areas that I'm sculpting in, instead of adding it everywhere, because usually it would add it, if I don't know how to explain it to you, but it would add it everywhere. So it's adding detail wherever your brush is going and nothing else. It's not affecting these areas. And that's how Sculptris Pro works. And the subdivide size is, well, here's what we did with Sculptris Pro. We sculpted this area and added it in. And I think if we bump up like our size, it makes it like bigger. See that? It's making it really big. Oh man, so that would look horrible. See that? So a low size, it makes it really dense, like probably too dense. So I'm gonna go back. I think the default is pretty good, to be honest. I wouldn't really change it. Like right now, it's just too much. So whatever that default was, set it back to that. And don't ask me what the default was. I don't remember. Sculptris Pro is new in ZBrush 2018, by the way. You can download ZBrush as well. You can download a trial of it for 30 days from Pixelogic's website. I think it's pixelogic.com. You can just get it off of. All right, so that's the subdivision. I don't mess with this. Let's take off. It doesn't matter. I mean, we could take it off for now. Lazy Mouse. Lazy Mouse is awesome. The way Lazy Mouse works is, you see, like if I'm making like a crazy stroke, sometimes it's hard to keep my brush nice and even. I mean, I'm doing it because I've sculpted for a while, so I know how to. And actually, I have lazy mouse on. I have lazy mouse turned on right now. So when you're sculpting, you see how it's following and it's giving you nice forms. Let me increase the Z intensity so you can see this in practice. All right. If I turn off lazy mouse, and now I'm kind of like freehanding it. You know, I'm like sculpting and lazy mouse on. You know, it's controlling it more. It's getting a roll in there, like a roll distance. I'm gonna hold shift. I think I have to bump up the roll distance really high. I don't even know if it's that one. Oh, lazy radius. Smooth. So you can mess with these settings. How much of a lazy step do you want? Like this one, it's like huge. See that? So the lazy step is when it drags it. How much of a drag do you want? And actually, I think you can see that, but this lazy mouse can be good for dragging out these points. See that? And get pretty cool effect like that. How awesome is that? I'm going to Control Z. I wonder if I can go back to before I did a sub, before I got rid of my. Yeah, there we go. See, I got my layers back. All right, so let's do something with that lazy mouse turned on. And let me try to see where it would make sense we could put these at. Maybe we could put these on his head. Oh. You see how it's dragging it even on there? If I turn lazy mouse off and I just do it, I'm not going to get that. Because I'm messing with these settings, like with this, I think it's the step that does it. Let me see if I raise the step higher. Well, the step controls, yeah, it controls that drag. It controls the drag, so you can see I'm getting more here. So let me see how we can really make this work for us. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of cool places we can put this effect at. Let's try. Maybe we'll put it on his chin. Getting a little off course here, which tends to happen sometimes. Yeah, I don't know if I like that. So you can see, I mean, you can use the lazy mouse to make like a cool effect like that. I don't know where I want that effect to be. Maybe we'll just put it a little bit underneath his chin or something. I don't know. All right, so we'll just put it a little bit under his chin, I guess. I think if I take the lazy mouse, is it down? Yeah, if you take it all the way down, you can see what happens. I took it all the way down. So lazy step controls how much of a drag you're going to get. Oh, you know what? I think it would look good here. Look good on his eyebrows. It's pretty cool though. We can use it like wherever we want. You know? All right, so that's what lazy mouse is. Lazy mouse is super helpful if you want to make you want to use, make lines or something, or make things a little bit straighter when you work. And if, like I said, if you hold control and you click on these things, it's going to tell you what it does. Usually, if it doesn't, you can always go to like the Pixelogic help website. This activates a lazy curve. See that? It makes a curve. I don't really use that too much. Curves are something different. Like brushes have curves to them, some of them, and it like you can wrap curves. You can wrap different geometry around your model and things like that. The frame mesh is a good thing to use for curves, though, and I'll teach you that a little later. But if you were framing a mesh like if there was like a dress and you had like this border around it, you can click frame mesh and frame that around it. It's kind of an advanced feature. I'll show it to you in a future video, definitely. Inventory, record brush strokes. I don't really mess with this. But yeah, I would say out of here, only thing I really mess with is Lazy Mouse, Sculptors Pro, and the curves. Okay, so maybe that's like everything in the menu. We'll close that one out. So now you'll know how to do strokes. Oh, here we go. Spotlight. That's kind of a big one. Spotlight's is kind of like its own lesson in a way. We click load spotlight. We don't have a spotlight to load. If we choose a different texture, the way Spotlight works is you have to pick something to load into it first, right? So I'm going to just load in my logo thing again. All right, so right here there's an on and off button to turn Spotlight on and off. And if you like Spotlight and you want to use it, set a custom area to put that menu item, to put that, like put it on here or something, because it's going to come in handy for you. But let me just show you what happens. If you click turn on Spotlight, there's no texture right now. So let's just assign this 3D texture, right? Now if we click turn on Spotlight, or add to Spotlight first. Sorry, it's been a while. If you click add to Spotlight, it's going to open the Lightbox thing. Just click comma to close that. You're going to get this tool here. I'm just going to close this so we have a little bit more room to see what's going on here. And I can make this bigger or smaller. I could move this where I want to. So in retrospect, if you want to load in different references, right? This is something you can do. Let's say we want to add something else to Spotlight. So I'm going to import another thing. Let's just import this. Why not? Okay. So I'm importing my second texture into Spotlight. You can see this one gets smaller. If I double click it, it makes it bigger. If I double click this one, it makes this one bigger. So what you can do is you can work in Spotlight. You can press Z, right? And then you can go ahead and, let's say you were using this as reference, you can go ahead and start sculpting, kind of start sculpting on this. Oops. Okay, I'm sculpting on this. So you can start sculpting this. You can use this as reference while you're sculpting. If you press Z again, you can move this over. I could scale this down. Maybe it's too big, like, this, and I press Z. Now I can work while I'm looking at this. Press Z again, double click, And now I can maybe scale this one down. There's other uses for spotlight as well, though, too. You can pin a spotlight, which I don't remember what that means. Spotlight radius is something I use. That controls like the radius of the spotlight itself. So when you click Z, you see how you can barely see it now? Now it's like it's pinned. Like you can only see it when you highlight over there. Like it's there. It's hidden. Press Z again. You can change the opacity of the spotlight radius. And you're supposed to just kind of just twirl this around, kind of like one of those old rotary phones. It's so weird, man. It's so weird. Now I'm like stuck on it. Oh, because I had pin on. Okay. So pin, like, it follows you around everywhere. I don't know if that would be a good thing or not. Opacity is the opacity of this. Like, if it's too distracting, maybe you want to dim it down like that while you work. I'll just turn it up for now a little bit. You can tile it proportionally. That tiles these two proportionally. Fade. I think it just fades out. We already have a fade going on anyway. Tile proportional. Tile unified. Now these are unified, like they're like the same equal width. You have back, you have delete, flip horizontal. Oops, I can't even see what I'm doing. Hold on a second. Flip horizontal tile, grid. And this don't work until you do the Z. And honestly, I don't even know what grid does. I never use it. Usually, like if I'm using spotlights, either to do reference or you can paint on your model with the texture. You could smudge your image. You can clone this image. You can nudge this image. So you can do some some changes like that. But you can paint with this image too. You can paint on your model with this image. I think I click paint and then click Z. Make sure you're in RGB. Yeah. So you can literally paint. So make sure you're in RGB, click Z, and just go like this. Make your brush bigger or whatever. And you could paint. You could literally paint on your model. That effect. So that might be good for something maybe like, I don't know, like dragon skin, So let's just grab like a dragon skin texture or something. Yeah, cool. Let's just grab this one. Why not? We're going to click save image, and we'll just save it to our desktop. It's called Final. Okay. So now what we have to do in order to see that image, we have to bring it in the spotlight. So I'm going to just go to texture, and I'm going to go to import, and I'm going to grab that image that it's called Final. I'm just going to press F to get there a little faster. We have the image. Now we're going to choose the image, and now we're going to click to add it to Spotlight. Add to Spotlight. Go to click comma rather to close that out. And there we go. We got this image in here. I'm going to make this image really big. Scale it up a little bit. So it covers the whole thing. And then I'm going to click paint. And then we should be able to just paint on this. Yeah. So now we can literally just paint on top of this. I have like lazy, hold on, I have lazy mouse turned on in the stroke. So I'm going to go to stroke, go to lazy mouse, and turn this off. and just paint this in here. And wherever it's highlighted over, it's going to paint that. I'll move this over, paint. See that? And it does both, and it did both sides. I'm gonna click Z. Shift Z gets rid of it completely too, by the way. So you can see what we just did was we literally painted a picture on our model. You know, like an image on our model. So Spotlight is pretty useful. You know, you can see right what I'm doing is I'm like painting out. I can paint out the color. Like I could just choose a red and paint it out if I wanted to. Or I could color pick. If I drag this onto here, I could color pick like an orange maybe. And then I could drag onto a different color and then pick this color. And then drag here and pick this color. So I literally like choosing the different colors of it. So Shift Z hides Spotlight. Shift Z brings Spotlight back. Shift Z hides. Shift Z brings Spotlight back. Z allows you to edit Spotlight, and then Z allows you to work in Spotlight. Z, Z, Z. Whole lot of Z's. So yeah, so that's how you would use Spotlight. I'm gonna see if there's anything else in Spotlight. The only other thing I would say is like if you're trying to sculpt on your model, and you can't sculpt on your model, it's probably because, oops, it could be because you have Spotlight projection turned on or something. So you might need to turn that off. And Spotlight projection is under, don't quote me on it, I gotta find it, it's so hidden. I think it's under modifiers. You know, I don't remember what it's under one of these settings here. I usually set all these in my menu, like a custom menu, so I know where it is. Otherwise, you have to kind of go in there. Here it is. It's under samples. So under samples, Spotlight projection's on. But if I turn it off, right, and then I try to, let me just lower the opacity, or let's make this smaller, and let's just make this like this. Let's unpin this. Oh, it's not even going to do it now, I bet. Yeah, it's working anyway. But basically, if you have that off, if you don't have Spotlight projection off, I think it is, or if it's on, I forget which one it is, but it won't let you sculpt on your model, basically. It won't let you move. I think it won't let you move it outwards. I think that was the biggest thing that it was doing. It's working now. I have no clue why, but if you ever have any issues, just make sure either it's on or it's off. One or the other. These other things I don't mess with. Invert, rotate. I don't really mess with all this stuff here. I think this changes what the texture width and height. Then there's grab doc. You can grab your document, make a texture from it or something. So it made a texture out of this image, which is kind of wonky, but that's what it does. You can clone a texture. You can add a new texture. You can remove a texture. Let's remove that last texture. That was kind of ugly. Just make sure it's loaded in the thing before you remove it. So if I want to remove. There we go. We load it in, then we remove it. Image plane is very useful. It kind of does what I was showing you guys before, which is where you load the reference images, like with the grid and stuff like that. And I don't have anything like to load in, but you see reference views. You could store different views. All right, so actually it's good for this. So if I store front view, there we got the front. If I want a side view, or let's say right view, boom, we got the right view. If I want a back view, I'll put it to the back and then I'll click back. and now click Store View. Make sure you click Store View. I did it wrong. Store View. Okay. Now if we go front, we got front view, we got a back view, and we got a right view. Now if we want a top view, we just position this to top. Click top, Store View. So this just allows you to work a little faster. You know, if you want to just go to a quick view, you can just say back, front, left, right, whatever you want to do. Just allows you to work a little faster. That's pretty much what the views does. All right. I hope I'm not really dragging on too much with this stuff. Sorry if I am. There is a lot to cover, but we will get to fun stuff. I will be creating some projects and showing you guys how we can do it. Introducing you to different workflows. Hopefully get you sculpting and working on your own project. You know, that's really what it's all about. Transform is the next transform? Well, tool. Oh, whoa. Tool is really tool is like its own lesson, but I want to kind of do things in order, so let's see if we can blast through the tool. It's kind of hard though. There's so much in the tool. Again, tool is open by default in ZBrush. Let me just go back to the beginning. Yeah, we'll go back here. I just go in my history and just slide that backwards. So I just went back to the future, or back in time. So I have my subdivisions. Tool. This is when you first load ZBrush, you get this tool, and there is a ton of options. I'm going to close this out for a second. There's a ton of options in here, and I'm going to cover, you know, a lot of them more in depth later. There's things that's just its own lesson, but it has a lot of things that you would need to work with. Load tool, we kind of did that. We load our tool all the time, you know, when we load our project. So you can save a tool as a different name. You can copy this tool, you know, and you could paste, and you can click like a star, and you could paste that tool, and now that tool's a part of that, you know, where that star thing was. So that's kind of how that works. I'm going to load the tool again. Well, I Dino 5, yeah. Get rid of that tentacle thing for now. So, and then you have import and export. Now, if you're importing a 3D mesh, you would import an OBJ from another program like 3ds Max. Let's say I made something in 3ds Max and I need to bring it in. You know, I could bring it in as an OBJ file. So my alien, I made an OBJ file, I believe. So if I hit open on alien, right, what it does is it brings in that alien. It kind of brought it in upside down, but this is an OBJ file, the upside down alien. So that's an example of how that works. You can also see here I have different files here. So if I go back to Dino 5, that's the file working it. You can work in like multiple files at the same time in a way. Kind of, sort of. But yeah, by clicking this, if I go here, I can see the other model that I have. And if I go here, that's the model that we were working with. Okay. So that's what import mesh does. I can also export this as well, but if it's too high in polygons, it's, you know, I could save this right now though as Dino 5. And then I can load this in 3ds Max, but if this is too high in poly count, you can see right now it's trying to save it out. So it's going to take a second. If it's too high in polygon and you bring it into 3ds Max, it might start chugging on you though. So that might not be the best option for you to do right off the bat. You'll have to do something usually called decimated first, which is in Decimation Master, which we haven't really learned yet, but it's right here. You would basically just pre-process current. I'll show you guys later, but it would just reduce the poly count, the amount of geometry. Right now we're at Oh, I don't know. I think that's 2 million or something like that. Some crazy number. Polygons. So we would have to bring that down. I don't even know what it is. There's no comments, so whatever. All right. Anyway, moving along. You can clone the tool. When you clone a tool, it's cloning a tool into another and into like another file, kind of in a way. Like it's not cloning it here in a subtool, because this is, think of this as its own project, right? This is its own project. I have two tools here. When I clone a tool, it cloned it down here, or did it clone it up here? Who knows? There, it cloned it here. Dino 5. It cloned that tool right here when I click clone into its own thing. If I click clone again, it's going to keep creating clones of this. So it's like different projects that you're working on, kind of. And I can click to go to each of those projects, and they'll have their own tools. I'll go back to this one with the tools that we had. Make Polymesh 3D. When you use ZBrush, certain objects are going to be Polymesh, or you have to make them in a Polymesh 3D before you can actually sculpt on them. So I think I can already sculpt on this one. Yeah. But usually, trying to find a good example of this because it's been a sec since I did it. And I think, is it Spear? Maybe it's Spear 3D. Let me delete this one. Okay. Go to this one here. Oh, I don't know. Let's just go, let's say make Polymesh 3D. Let's see what it does. All right. It made this into a Polymesh 3D tool. So it makes a Polymesh 3D tool, and it puts it as its own thing. But generally, when you start out with like default tools, they have different things under initialize that can be tweaked. Right here, there's an initialize. You can see I can turn it into a cube. You don't always have to start out with a spear, I guess is what I'm trying to tell you. You can start out with a square. You can see the resolution here with these squares here. And you could choose like how much kind of like resolution it has. And I think this one, yeah, I think this one you can't sculpt on. Or maybe you can. No clue. But then you can make it a Polymesh 3D afterwards when everything's all said and done. But from my knowledge, if I'm not mistaken, if you can't sculpt on something, you got to make it a Polymesh 3D if it gives you issues. Although none of these things are giving us issues, they're allowing us to sculpt on it. Let's go back to, what is it, Dino 5. Yeah, Dino 5. GoZ, we went over all. This will export all subtools. So instead of just exporting one, I can export everything outside. And it'll open up in like 3ds Max or something. Or you can export just visible subtools. So you see there's an eye icon here. I can click the eyes on and off. So if just this eye is selected and I click visible, then only this subtool will be exported. This one will not be exported. So that's kind of what visible does. R is to reset the selected GoZ application. If you want to reset, the file directory for where your GoZ is installed, that's the button to do that. Lightbox tools. If you click that, it'll bring up tools. ZBrush comes with tools by default, and these are all the tools that it comes with. I'll just double click on this so you can see it comes with that. So it kind of comes with things to get you going, to get you sculpting fast. It's going to come with different models. Well, let's change this color a little bit, and let's get rid of red wax. But yeah, you're going to see that it comes with different stuff already loaded in here. And this is, these can be a good starting point for you if you don't have any base meshes. You can load your own mesh in here and work off of that as well. But you do have the option to start. There's even like, there's even like a skeleton in here, I think. Which I think is it Ryan Kingsley in it made this? Yeah, Ryan Kingsley is really good. But he made this skeleton model. So you already have something to kind of get you started, instead of working from scratch. You can use this for comparisons or something when you're sculpting a face or a body and see what's what. We'll go back to Polysphere. Go to Polysphere. Hit comma. So, I mean, there's so many different ways you can start. When you're using ZBrush, like when you're working in it, there's a lot of default ways that you can start using it to do whatever you want. And these are all the different subtools. There's something called Simple Brush, but I don't really use that. That's going to take you out of the mode. I'll do not switch. I don't want to switch anything. There's some uses for it. Maybe if you're doing environment work and tileable things, but you can make screen grabs of things too. I'll show you a little later on about that. Okay, so subtool. We kind of already touched what subtool is, but let's kind of touch a little bit more in depth, I guess. So right here you can see we have a spear, and it's named Polyspear. If I want to rename it, I can click rename and I can call this, spear or something. Man, I don't know why I can't highlight this, and I guess we can rename this tool today. Oh. Now it's working. Then hit enter when you're done. When you can see it says spear now, so that update it. There's an auto collapse. You can auto collapse sections in here. So if I have auto collapse on and I open this and I open that, you can see remesh closed but Boolean stayed open. That's what that is. Don't worry about it. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate. You know what I'm going to do? I'll do append. When you append something, you're adding something, right? So I'm going to append a cone. Okay. So now we have a cone. Here, I'll show them both at the same time. We have a cone and we have a circle. Because I appended it. I can append another subtool, like a cube, which is kind of like, going over it. So we can kind of move it down. Or move one of them down. I don't know. Maybe we'll move the circle up. There. So we have 3 different tools. We have a spear, a cone, and a cube. You can do auto order, and that's going to change the order of things. You can also do, select up. Like if you're trying to highlight a certain subtool, you can just hit up to highlight that subtool. Or you can hit down to highlight this tool. If you want to move the tool upwards, if I want to move this spear up, what I got to do is I got to highlight the spear and then click this button here. And now you can see the spear is in the middle. So that moved it upwards. List all subtools is N. Is just by pressing N, you can see all your subtools at the same time. The subtools that you don't have selected, in other words. That's why it only showed 2 there. Rename one over auto order. All low, we can change all the subtools to the lowest subdivision level, which is sub D1. And we can do all high. You can see this one just changed the 3. So if you have different subtools and your program's lagging and you have them all at high resolution, you can change them all downwards by clicking all low. And then when you want to make them all high resolution again, you just click all high. It'll automatically jump you to your highest subdivision level. Duplicate subtool, pretty self-explanatory. If you duplicate it, there you go, you got a duplicate. Insert subtool. I don't know, insert, it seems like it's the same thing as the append, if I'm not mistaken, but wait, is it the same thing? Maybe it's not. I'm not sure what that, I don't know what that does. I'll drag that back out and I'll just go back into this F. Oh, you know what? It's just because, you know, with a circle, you can't really see anything going on with this circle. If I go like this, now we can see that it's actually moving. It's kind of like an optical illusion. But a pen, we already went over. Delete, let's get rid of this extra square. Just highlight it, click delete, click OK, and it's gone. Delete all other subtools but the subtool you're on. If I just want to keep this triangle and delete everything else, there we go. We just have the triangle. If you want to delete everything, you can just click this. You can split subtools. To demonstrate that, we need more than one subtool. Well, we'll add this, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to skip here and we're going to click merge. And we're going to click merge visible. Okay. And when we merge visible, it'll merge it into one subtool. You see that? But they're two different subtools. Now, if we click split, we do a group split. It has polygroups, which is purple and green. Since they're, as long as they're two different colors, we can do a group split. So I'll do a group split. And what it does is it splits these both on different layers. Merge we went over pretty much. Boolean, we didn't make a Boolean mesh yet. We'll do that in a future chapter. I don't have time, unfortunately, today to do that. Remesh makes a remeshed version of your model. So what it does is it remeshes this with the other whatever's visible, and it makes it one thing. You see that? It actually meshed it together. So it kind of fused it. See, it's one color now. It's one object. So that's what remesh does. Project, we went over project, the Z project, when we were projecting our low details to our high details to our low details onto a different mesh to get a cleaner mesh. And these are just the settings for it. And the last thing I'm going to cover tonight is the extract. If we make a mask and we click extract, we can extract another piece of geometry. And I'll demo this like on my dinosaur in the next episode, the dino we're making. But if you click extract and you could, it's like a preview. So if you click extract, you see it disappears. If you click extract and then you click accept, it's going to first you're going to press control to clear your mask here, and then you go to this. You go to this, and this is what it created. It extracted a piece from the other piece. You know what I mean? So I'll do that again so you can see it. So what I want to do is I'm going to extract this shape that I just made. I'll just click extract, and I have that shape. I'll hit accept, and it'll put that shape on another layer. And this is helpful for things like eyelids and certain areas that are giving problems, you know. So I'll just bring this to the mesh. If you go to unmask, it'll go to unmask center of the object. That's what this thing does. It kind of looks like a Google Maps thing here. But yeah, now I can move this out, you know, and I have a piece of geometry, or I can push it in, whatever I want to do. So that's what extract does. Extract's super handy. You use it for things like shirts. You want to add a shirt to your character. You extract the shirt onto a character. I'll do a 5-second demo on that. So basically, if you just take this and you put this here, whoops, I'm doing this pretty rough, so forgive me. You know, so if we just want to give this guy a shirt, right? And then we click extract, bam, he has a shirt. Now we hit accept. And the shirt goes on a different layer. See that? So that's what extract does. Extract's good for stuff like that. Extract is great for stuff like that. I'll turn this on so you can see both of them together. See? And then what you would do is you would basically go in here and you can start cleaning it up or something. I mean, there's a better way to clean this up. I'll show you in another chapter, but I'm just doing a quick and dirty way, you know. And that's pretty much it for that. All right, so in part 4, we'll go over the rest of the tools. We have a lot to cover. So yeah, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys in part 4. Have a great night.